Death doesn't hunt, death designs. And every corpse in this story made the same error. They reacted to what they saw instead of reading what was hidden. Here's how each one could have walked away. The environment is a closed system of escalating inevitability. The rules are simple but brutal. Death operates through chain reactions, exploiting human blindness to peripheral threats. The key dynamic isn't survivor versus death. It's pattern recognition versus cognitive denial. Every character who dies shares one fatal flaw. They see the world as random when it's ruthlessly sequential. The counter strategy is never to treat any space as safe. Treat every object as a potential trigger and every moment as a system scan. 1968. The Skyview Restaurant. Iris stands on a rooftop. Paul proposes. The ring slides on. The manipulation is already in motion, a moment of emotional peak designed to narrow focus. The boy tosses the coin. Iris sees it. The trap is classic distraction architecture. Romance occupies the foreground while death engineers the background. Most would watch the proposal. Iris watches the coin. This is the first lesson: emotional highs are blinders. Paul should have abandoned the romantic script immediately upon Iris's warning, grabbed her hand, and moved to the building's structural core, the elevator shaft or stairwell, without waiting for explanation or consensus. Because romantic momentum is death's accomplice, and hesitation is a tax on survival. The coin hits the fan stops, cracks spread beneath dancing feet. The building is a machine of interconnected failures, and nobody sees the machine because they're watching each other. The dancers should have stopped moving entirely the moment Iris shouted about the floor, because vibration from dancing accelerated the crack spread. Static weight buys time, but rhythmic impact accelerates collapse, and stillness is the only currency that pays. Paul falls through. Iris screams. Nobody comes. The manipulation here is bystander paralysis, the assumption that someone else will act, that help is a default setting. It isn't. Iris should have stopped screaming and immediately assessed anchor points, door frames, structural columns, anything load-bearing, and directing Paul toward them with specific commands, not desperate noise, because panic is a language death understands, while precision is its enemy. Paul grabs glass. Glass is a lie, transparent, fragile, designed to look solid while failing under load. He slips, he falls. Paul should have spread his body flat to maximize friction against the floor edge, distributing weight horizontally rather than hanging vertically, because glass is a vertical surface, not a load-bearing one, and hanging is gravity's game, while spreading is survival's only reliable partner. The explosion comes. A woman runs into gas, igniting everything. The manipulation is panic-driven directionality. People run toward exits because exits are symbols of safety, not because they've been verified as safe. The walkway collapses. The boy who threw the coin leads the charge. He survives. This isn't luck. It's trajectory awareness. He's moving with the collapse, not against it. The crowd should have never followed the first mover in a structural failure, because the first mover is running on instinct, not analysis, and stillness for 2 seconds to observe the failure vector before moving perpendicular to it would have saved them. The walkway collapsed because it was the obvious path, and the obvious path is always the target. The elevator, overcrowding, an old man shoves Iris aside, gets stuck, gets crushed. The manipulation is scarcity. Psychology-limited space creates aggression. Aggression creates disorder. Disorder creates mechanical failure. Iris should have immediately turned and located the service stairs or freight elevator when the primary failed, because fighting for the primary exit is a zero-sum game, while secondary egress is always less contested and often more structurally stable. And the old man died because he committed to a bottleneck, while Iris survived because she was excluded from it. The floor splits. People slide. A woman lands on glass, looks up, sees a piano. Death drops a coin on it. The piano falls. The manipulation is false sanctuary. She thinks the glass saved her, so she stops moving. Stopping is the mistake. She should have rolled laterally off the glass pane immediately, because glass is temporary infrastructure and every surface below her should be assumed compromised, and the nearest solid wall or column is the only truth worth gripping. while stopping to assess is a luxury and continuous motion is the tax on survival. The boy escapes, smirks, stops to celebrate. The piano takes him. He should have maintained velocity until outside the building perimeter entirely, because celebration is a cognitive state, not a location, and death rewards the first pause with the last surprise. Iris climbs. The ring catches a rod. The manipulation is sentimental attachment, as anchor the ring Paul gave her becomes her last hold. It fails. She falls. Iris should have sought fabric, rough concrete, or any surface with friction coefficient higher than polished steel, because sentiment is a grip hazard and physics is the only reliable partner, and metal on metal is designed to slip. We now see Stephanie wakes in class, 2 months of identical nightmares. The manipulation here is dismissal of pattern her roommate suggests, going home, as if location changes cognition. It doesn't. The nightmare isn't trauma, it's transmitted intelligence. Iris saw the future. Stephanie inherited the signal. The mistake is treating it as psychology when it's data. Stephanie should have started a systematic log after the second identical dream dates, times, environmental details, emotional states, and cross-reference them with family records, because pattern recognition requires documentation, not conversation. And she wasted 2 months talking when she should have been mapping. She asks Marty about Iris. Marty frowns, smiles awkwardly, hides something. The manipulation is parental authority, as obscurity fathers are assumed to protect, but protection often means information control. Stephanie accepts the deflection. Stephanie should have treated Marty's evasion as confirmation, not closure, and immediately pivoted to Charlie, to family photo albums, to public records, any source Marty didn't control, because one block path is a signpost to another, and block paths reveal more than they conceal. Charlie mentions visiting cousins. Stephanie tags along. Marty warns, don't mention Iris. The manipulation intensifies. Prohibition creates curiosity, but also reveals threat assessment. Marty knows something. The warning confirms the danger, yet Stephanie treats it as a mystery to solve rather than a protocol to respect. Stephanie should have mentioned Iris immediately upon arrival, before Howard or Brenda could establish conversational control, because preemptive disclosure prevents defensive preparation, and surprise is her weapon, while their shock is her opening. Howard, Darlene, the sky view, shock. The manipulation is social deflection. Howard changes topics, Brenda freezes, the family closes ranks, Stephanie presses. Stephanie should have isolated Howard in a one-on-one scenario, instead of pressing in a group setting where collective defense is strongest, because solitude exposes secrets while groups protect them, and she needed the information, not the shield. The revelation: Iris isn't dead, she's as good as dead. The manipulation is linguistic burial. Calling someone alive dead removes obligation. Stephanie should have asked for Iris's location immediately, not later, because every hour of delay is an hour of death's design advancing, and information delayed is opportunity denied. Iris's history: mental breakdown, locked children, police intervention, foster care, threatening letters. The manipulation is pathologization of the protector. Iris saw death coming, tried to save her children, was institutionalized for it, and system punished preemptive survival. Howard and Brenda should have studied those letters for patterns instead of treating them as pathology, because warnings with photos aren't threats. The intelligence briefings and survival data treated as pathology is paid for with lives. Stephanie finds the letters. The photos match her dreams. The manipulation collapses. Denial requires distance. Proximity destroys it. She drives to the mountain, alone. Stephanie should have copied the letters, photographed every page, and left the originals with Charlie or Marty, because solo verification with sole copies is a single point of failure, and redundancy is survival's insurance policy. The intercom: Iris urges her to leave. The manipulation is reverse psychology. Through genuine fear, Iris wants her safe, but the warning confirms the location contains answers. Stephanie should have asked Iris 3 specific questions before entering. What is the nearest exit? What objects are trapped? What is the current threat vector? Because entry without environmental briefing is entry blind, and blind entry is a donation to death. Empty pockets, spiked roof, strange obstacles. The house is a defensive architecture. Iris spent 20 years building counter-death infrastructure. Stephanie walks carefully. The fire extinguisher falls. Iris warns, don't touch. Stephanie should have identified every object in her immediate perimeter upon entry, classified it by mass and mobility, and established a minimum safe distance from anything that could fall, roll, or swing. Because spatial awareness is a perimeter game, and she played it reactively instead of proactively. Iris offers the book. Stephanie refuses. Leaves. Iris steps outside. Wind. Compass. Fire extinguisher. Impalement. Stephanie should have taken the book, read it in the car, and returned with questions. Because refusal based on disbelief is ego, and temporary acceptance for verification is strategy, and she killed Iris with her skepticism,